Are you an American that doesn't feel like they have enough vacation time? Well, you're not alone. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American only gets 10 vacation days every year, and some Americans don't even get paid to take a vacation at all. So, if you have felt like you don't have enough vacation time, you want to make the days you do have count. Most Americans are lucky to get a week or two every year to go on vacation. So, a 7-day itinerary is probably ideal for you. Well, look no further than this video, as I'm going to break down the perfect way to plan a 7-day itinerary with these 7 tips. Before you start planning your dream vacation, make sure you can actually afford it. The last thing you want to do is to get into debt just to go on a vacation. Remember, this is a luxury, not a need. So I love travel as much as anybody, but I can't sit here and say that you should ruin your financial life to start a vacation. Make sure you establish a budget before you start booking anything. So review your options, review your savings, how much money you might be making, and how much money you can set to the side for something like this. Now, everyone's budget is going to be different, obviously. And some people just have different travel styles in general for what they need on a vacation. Some people are just fine traveling on $1,000 a month in some cheap part of the world, while other people may spend $200,000 to rent a luxury yacht for the week. You know what show I'm talking about there. So, the point is, everybody's gonna have a different travel style, and everybody's gonna have a different amount of money that they're gonna need to have a good vacation. Sit down, do the math, and figure out what the right budget is for you. After that, we can use the next tips to make sure you have your dream vacation. My next tip for you is to create a radius. What do I mean by this? This means determine how far you're willing to travel to your final destination. What are you willing to do in such a short period of time, a week? Now, this means because you only have a week that you're most likely not taking a road trip across the country, and I probably wouldn't recommend taking a flight to the other side of the world. What your radius is depends on your personal limits, your travel group's limits, and also how much time you realistically have. So for me, if I'm driving somewhere, I think my limit would be about 12 or 15 hours to go somewhere. That gives me time to have one full day of driving, one full day to get back, and enough time to enjoy everything in between. And I should add an important note. This is for my furthest point in the road trip. So like New York to Chicago, for example, or New York to Orlando if you really want to push it on the road. Flying is a bit of a different story. I think for me, I would not recommend going from, let's just say, USA to Asia for a 1-week vacation. I think the amount of time it takes to fly over there is not worth it for this period of time. I think my personal limit would be under 10 hours due to the fact that you have to account for 2 or 3 hours of airport time. That includes time chilling in the airport, time to get to the airport from your original destination, and time to get out of the airport in your final destination to whatever accommodation you have. So there's more time you have to account for when flying. So for me, I think like 8 or 9 hours would be my limit for a week vacation flying. That means from New York, you can fly to most parts of Europe. You could fly to most of the Caribbean and even parts of South America if you really want to push it, and coast to coast United States. It basically means no Asia, probably no Africa, and for those of you that want to have a fancy party, no Dubai. The point is, create your radius and be firm about it. Some people may have a shorter radius. An example might be if you're a novice traveler and just want to travel for the sake of traveling and don't have anything particular in mind, or even if you're just like, a family that wants to take their young kids somewhere, but the young kids may not be able to tolerate a long journey, well, your radius may shrink. I know people that don't want to drive more than 4 or 5 hours to their final destination, and that's fine too. Just make sure you do your research about this and figure out what that radius is. So Type in on Google Maps from your original destination to your final destination. See how much 4 hours can take you, or whatever radius it is that you determine. Same with flying. Like you may only want to be on a 4 hour flight, and I don't blame you. Like it takes a lot of willpower to be on a flight for a long time. I've gone to Asia back and forth about 5 times in my life. Trust me, it's not for the faint of heart. I could understand part of the vacation is keeping travel time to a minimum. So let's just say your radius for flying is also 4 hours, a 4 hour flight. We'll use New York for an example here. Basically, you're taking Europe out the window completely in this situation for flying. You would also take coast to coast travel in the United States out of the equation. I think most South America is definitely out too. I think like from the northern part of the US, you're basically limiting yourself to like central US, southern US, such as like Orlando, Miami, big major cities in Texas like Dallas. You could go to Chicago from like the East Coast, New York too. And like I'd say maybe to like the Caribbean, I guess. Like you could fly to parts of Mexico. You could fly to parts of like the you can fly to parts of the Caribbean, such as like DR, Puerto Rico, uh, Bahamas, stuff like that. So my point is, do try to determine what your radius is, figure out how far you're willing to travel, then go from there. My next tip is to know your travel party. Now, there could be several different types of travel parties you might have for a vacation. You could be one part of a romantic relationship. You could be traveling with a group of guys or gals as friends. You could be going with your family somewhere with multiple generations, or you could be on a solo trip. My point is, no matter what type of travel party you have for this occasion, make sure you account for what type of people are going to be with you. Let's start with the easiest one, solo travel. For this, just know yourself, like know what you like, know what you don't like. Same thing if you're traveling with a romantic partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Make sure you know what they are going to like and what they don't like, and talk about it with them. Like, talk about what your interests are, talk about what their interests are, and see what type of vacation that would be best for your combined interests. Same with the family. You may have different factors come up with family. Like, if you're traveling with older relatives, you might have to account for places that may that you may run into mobility issues. Like with older relatives, you're not going to walk up a pyramid, for example. Or like, you're probably not going to take older relatives on a strenuous hike in a national park either. With kids, I would also say you might want to be a little more careful about where you go. Like, some people may disagree with this, but I would not take kids to New Orleans. That would just be an example. Or Las Vegas might you could technically take kids there, but I don't think that would be somewhere everyone would want to take their kids. Is my point. Like you're gonna have to account for activities that your kids are gonna want to do. Your kids are gonna need to be satisfied, and you're probably gonna want to be in a more family friendly environment in that situation. And this is the same thing for a group of guys or a group of gals traveling together. Like, you're gonna need to make sure you have common interests. I think that's the number one thing. Like, make sure you have a common interest if you're traveling with a group of friends, or even this goes for any type of travel group really. Make sure you have something that binds you together. Make sure you have a reason why you all want to travel. And you may have never traveled with these people before. You're gonna learn a lot about them on a vacation. Trust me, that's when things start to come out. Especially if you're in like a romantic relationship traveling. I think this is the number one test outside of like living together and having children of what your romantic partner really is like. Because you'll run into, especially if you do a trip where not everything is planned for you, you'll probably run into situations where something unexpected goes wrong, or you learn something that your romantic partner likes that you don't, or you like something that your romantic partner doesn't. you'll learn what stresses them out, such as like getting on a bus somewhere or something happening in an airport, things like that. Like, the point is, you have to know, you have to try to know at least what type of people you're traveling with, and if you have some sort of idea what they're like, try to plan around it as best you can, and things to be prepared for things to happen. I'll put it that way. So, yeah, just make sure you know what type of people you're traveling with before you sign up on a vacation with them. The next tip I have for you guys is to consider the season that you're traveling. Now, this has a couple different meanings. One, the time of year that you're traveling, weather-wise, like, let's just say you're going to Florida, or let's just say you're going to the Caribbean, better example. So, if you're coming from the northern US, a great time to go is going to be the winter, but it's also going to be the most expensive time. So that means flights are going to be more expensive, lodging is going to be more expensive, ev- and activities are probably going to have more demand, so it will require you to book probably further in advance. Perfect example is like trying to go to like Disney World or a national park on Christmas week. That is just that is just something you don't want to do unless you're ready to deal with insane crowds. I have a funny story about this. So when I was a baby, pretty much like my family went to Disney World for a week, and my grandparents did not tolerate that very well. So they took one look at Magic Kingdom during Christmas week, and they told my parents, "See you at the hotel." And that's pretty much how they spent their vacation. So what I'm trying to say is make sure you account for busy season and make sure you account for low season as well, because low season, if you're on a more strict budget, that could make a vacation possible. The point is you need to account for stuff like that, but you also need to account for the weather too, because like let's just say you want to go to Florida or something. Florida, the hurricane season is from like August to October. So yeah, it might be cheaper that time of year, but you're also greatly increasing the risk of a natural disaster or weather getting in the way of your trip. So these are things you're gonna have to deal with. The same goes for the Caribbean as well. These are just things you're gonna have to deal with. And even if you go up to let's just say Canada, like if you're taking a winter trip somewhere, you're gonna have to deal with an increased risk of snow, increased risk of a blizzard falling, uh, blizzard hitting, something like that. So my point is make sure you're well aware of what time of year you're traveling, not only for financial reasons, for what weather may have to say about your trip itinerary. I think this is one of the most important parts of planning a week vacation. You need to find your hook. Now, what I mean by that is you need to have a reason why you're taking this vacation in the first place. And yeah, if you're with a group of people, like spending time with family you may not see that often, or getting to know a significant other better, or like catching up with old friends, that's all well and good. But if you're traveling with these people, you need to have a reason or a bond as to why you're going somewhere. So by you need to have a common interest, you need to have an activity that says, yes, this is the destination that we need to go to. Now, what are some examples of this? That I'm gonna do an easy one, tip of the iceberg type of thing. For families that have the money, that might mean taking a kid to Disney World. Now, that's all well and good. Just know that that type of trip takes a lot of organization, a lot of hyperactivity, day in and day out. So make sure you know what you're signing up for there. Uh, with a group of friends, for people that like city life, people that like culture, art, uh, art museums, music, history, you may want to plan a trip around a city that can offer that. Like, for example, I think an underrated place that has a more cultural experience in America is New Orleans. I think that can be a place where you can appreciate street art, appreciate good music, good cuisine, even, and like there's a good historical World War II museum there too. And I think there's a couple other museums around the city for people that are more into that scene. And honestly, a place like New York City, great, great for that. You'll have plenty of museums, plenty of art. I think there's great musicians, great stand-up comedy in New York as well. The point is, you'll be able to find all of that and more. Now, some people are more outdoorsy. Some people want to center a trip around nature. For that, you I think you have a lot of options, especially if you're from the US. Like there's 63 national parks in the United States alone, or you could want a more tropical vacation. That's great. There's plenty of Caribbean destinations in the United States that offer that. Uh, you can go to You can go to Bahamas. I apologize. I keep calling Mexico part of the Caribbean. They're just near together. I'm sorry. Um, you can go to Bahamas. You can go to DR. You can go to Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and if you want to go to Mexico, there's places in Mexico that offer that too. You can go to Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum. If you're coming from California, you can go to Cabo. The point is, you guys do have options, and the Virgin Islands as well. But if you want a more mountainous vacation or want more mountainous greenery, go to some states like Washington, Colorado, Montana, California, parts of California. That's more up your alley then, I would say. So my point is, it really depends on what you're looking for, and of course you can even center it around a certain hobby or a certain event. Like for example, there's a really good festival. If there's a really good festival, you can go to it. Like New Orleans has Mardi Gras. Maybe you want to go for that. Maybe maybe Las Vegas has a good event coming to town. Maybe you want to go to that. I personally like to travel to baseball stadiums once in a while. Go to I'll go to a game if a certain team's in town. It's something as simple as that. Like my point is, there's plenty of events, plenty of things can that can make you want to go to a certain destination. The challenge is like finding the right place that can suit everybody's needs and finding the right time period to say this is the absolute time that we should do it. This next tip goes with the last one. Once you find your hook, run with it. What do I mean by that? Make sure there's enough surrounding your main purpose of the vacation to make sure you can fill an entire week. Like, for example, let's say you're going to. I once went to a festival in the middle of nowhere, Montana, and that was like a 2-day, 3-day festival. Great. I did that for 2 days. What am I doing with the other 3 or 4 days of my time? You need to think about this stuff and need to make sure you're not wasting. You don't end up wasting time sitting in your hotel or something like that. You only have a week. You want to make the most of it. So what do I mean by this? Make sure there's enough to do around the area, or at least around the region if you have a car or accessible public transportation, to make sure you can enjoy the whole area and fill the week. An example could be like if you're going to the Bay Area, make sure you're doing stuff outside of just San Francisco. Make sure you enjoy the Pacific Coast. Make sure you enjoy what that has to offer. Maybe you want to take a day trip to Yosemite. Something as simple as that. In the Orlando area, like you could do something just outside of Disney World, or if you're just a park person in general, there's other good amusement parks in the area that can kill a day at a trip, like SeaWorld Orlando, Fun Spot, and of course Universal. But I think that takes 2 days by itself. But maybe you want to do something outside of amusement parks in Orlando. You can go to a golf club. You can go kayaking in Orlando, or you can find a brewery or something else that you could enjoy. My point is, make sure there's something that you could surround your main hook or main activity with. You could be going to a nice city like New York that has one specific event there that you really want to see, and that's why you're going to New York. That's great. That could be as simple as going to a sports event in Madison Square Garden, but wanting to kill the rest of the week in New York, make sure you have some other activities you want to enjoy. You could be someone that's a foodie. You could be someone that likes a good glass of wine. You could be someone that appreciates culture in a city, music in a city, other entertainment like that. Make sure the area has enough things that are available nearby. And even if you're taking like a road trip, like it could be a national park road trip that you want to make sure you don't get stuck in one place for too long. uh Amusement park road trip, there are places that you're going to be good after one day. Make sure there's enough in the area that you can drive to easily and get to the next day. I promise you, if you make sure you fill your vacation with supplementary activities, you will enjoy it and look back on it fondly like, man, I did a lot with my time. Finally, guys, make sure you have fun on this vacation. I mean, it is a luxury and it is entertainment at the end of the day. So, you want to make sure that it's going to be something you actually enjoy. And if you do it right and if you plan it properly, you will create memories that will last a lifetime, especially if you're doing it with family members or friends that you just don't see that often. Well, guys, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. You might be getting ready to book a flight, and that flight may have a layover. This layover is to the like and subscribe buttons. Otherwise, there may be a delay in getting future content that will help you travel more efficiently. Thanks, guys.